What if Tim Burton had stayed in Gotham, bringing his dark and twisted vision full circle? After two movies that changed the way we see Batman, Burton was all set to make a third film and close out his own trilogy.
It was nice to be a part of that newness.
But then he stepped away, and the project landed with Joel Schumacher, and the result was Batman Forever, a brighter, campier Gotham that felt like a whole different world. So what if Burton never left? What if Batman Forever had kept his eerie Gothic style, finishing the trilogy his way? Let's jump into the Gotham we might have had. Let's start with some context. So in 1992, Batman Returns hit theaters. It was more or less a direct follow-up to Batman 1989, but honestly, it stood on its own without needing to call back much to the first movie. And it was good, really good. We got Michael Keaton back as Batman, this time facing Danny DeVito as the Penguin, and Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. But after Batman Returns was a hit, Warner Brothers actually pushed Tim Burton out of the series. Why? Because the movie went dark. Like, really dark. As much as many love the creepy, gothic atmosphere, parents were shocked, and let's say, not happy at all. Danny DeVito dove all in as the Penguin, looking gross and sinister, with an army of circus freaks and scary rubber duck machines. The movie had moments of serious shock value. In one scene, Penguin even bites a guy's nose. And then there was Christopher Walken as the corrupt businessman who tries to kill Selena Kyle, sparking her transformation into Catwoman. Watching her go off the deep end, trashing her apartment was intense. She didn't have to break anything, but she went there. Anyway, parents were horrified. It was understandable, because imagine expecting a fun Batman Christmas movie in 1992, only to get a full-on dark gothic nightmare. Warner Brothers panicked, and made a big move. They decided to drop Tim Burton from Batman 3. Burton was out for Batman Forever. They offered it to Sam Raimi, who passed, and eventually, the job went to Joel Schumacher. Schumacher wanted to keep it dark, but the studio pushed him toward a more family-friendly, cartoonish Batman, which led to Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. And just like that, the tone of Gotham was about to shift dramatically. But what if Burton had stayed? How different would the film have been? If Tim Burton had directed Batman Forever, we'd likely have seen a return to that creepy, atmospheric Gotham we loved from his previous films. Like all of the dark, whimsical art direction he's known for, where every corner of Gotham would be filled with intriguing oddities, much like the haunting sets of Batman Returns. He had a knack for blending the macabre with humor.
Meow.
And Batman Forever could have featured a beautifully twisted version of Gotham, full of shadows and surreal visuals. Now let's talk about villains. In Schumacher's vision, we got Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face and Jim Carrey as the Riddler. But what if Burton had taken to the helm? He might have brought back some familiar faces, like Billy Dee Williams as Harvey Dent. Williams was set to portray Dent in Batman, and he could have delivered a nuanced performance that captured the tragic descent of Dent into Two-Face. It would have added emotional depth to the character, a hallmark of Burton's style. Speaking of the Riddler, can you imagine if Burton had cast Robin Williams, who was originally in the running for the role? Williams would have brought his unique energy, blending humor with an underlying darkness, making the character complex and compelling. The Riddler could have been a reflection of Batman's own struggles, a genius with a warped sense of morality. And let's not forget Catwoman. Michelle Pfeiffer's portrayal was iconic, and a return for her character could have been fascinating. Burton could have explored her transformation further, getting into the psychological ramifications of her chaotic life. The chemistry between Batman and Catwoman, set against a backdrop of Burton's eerie, fairy tale-like aesthetic, could have been just insane. It could have been an exploration of obsession, morality, and love. Dark themes Burton loves to play with. Now moving on to the film's overall tone. Schumacher's Batman Forever was criticized for being too cartoonish, with bright colors and over-the-top performances. Burton could have likely kept things darker and more grounded. There would have been a huge contrast between the humor and the serious undertones, creating a more balanced film. The iconic scenes might have felt more weighty, leaving audiences with a lingering sense of unease rather than just a surface-level thrill. Think about it. Burton could have turned the film into a thrilling, emotional roller coaster.
We're the same.
With his skill in depicting complex characters, we might have witnessed a deeper exploration of Batman's psyche. Instead of simply facing villains, Bruce Wayne could have confronted his own fears and insecurities, adding a rich psychological layer to the story. It would have made for a much more profound character arc, aligning perfectly with Burton's previous work.
Darkness is as clear as daylight.
Now what about Robin? In Schumacher's film, Chris O'Donnell portrayed a somewhat older and more established Robin. But if Burton had directed, we might have seen a younger actor stepping into the role. Perhaps Marlon Wayans, who was originally cast as Robin before being dropped, could have brought a fresh perspective to the character. Burton's interest for storytelling could have given Robin a more meaningful backstory, creating a dynamic relationship between him and Batman. You can think of those iconic scenes under Burton's direction, like the showdown at the Gotham Gala. Instead of bright lights and goofy antics, we could have experienced a tense atmosphere, filled with gothic flair, like grandiose architecture, swirling shadows, and an eerie score completing the action. Burton's signature style could have transformed action sequences into artistic displays, blurring the lines between horror and heroism. Speaking of scores, let's talk about the music. Danny Elfman, who composed the scores for Burton's earlier films, would likely have returned to create a hauntingly beautiful score. The music could have elevated the film, immersing the audience in a rich auditory experience that matched the visual tone. Imagine a haunting theme for the Riddler that echoes through the dark alleyways of Gotham, giving him an almost supernatural presence. Now let's shift gears and consider how audiences might have reacted to Burton's version. While Schumacher's Batman Forever had its fans, many felt it lacked the depth of Burton's films. A Burton-directed film would have likely resonated more deeply with fans of the original Batman series. The darker themes, complex characters, and rich visuals would have created a film that not only entertained, but also provoked thought and discussion. Looking ahead, if Tim Burton had continued with Batman Forever, it's possible the trajectory of the franchise would have been entirely different. Warner Brothers might have realized that darker storytelling could attract older audiences, making the way for more mature adaptations in the years to come. This could have changed the scene of superhero films, setting a precedent for the darker tones seen in later franchises. Ultimately, Burton's vision could have transformed Batman Forever into a timeless classic. While the film still would have had its flaws, it would have stood out as a unique entry in the Batman canon. Fans would likely be reminiscing about it today, much like we do with Batman Returns and the 1989 classic. So what do you think? Would you have preferred Tim Burton's vision for Batman Forever? Or do you like the colorful chaos of what we got? What changes would you make? And of course, we want to know who's your favorite DC character. Share your thoughts in the comments. Oh, and here's a fun fact. Did you know that the original cut of Batman Forever is rumored to be over 3 hours long? Many say it was a much more cohesive film than the one we saw in theaters. Just think about how insane it would be to see a more detailed plot that captures Batman's struggles and relationships with his enemies. It really makes you wonder what we missed out on. That's it for today's video. If you enjoyed this dive into Batman Forever, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content.